We're holding on letter Dalet in Torah Yud Gimel, and we're going to get into some very deep stuff today. A very interesting interpretation of the Kabbalistic vision of Yechezkel HaNavi, of the Chariot, that gives us a roadmap of all of Kabbalah. We're going to see that, and we're going to see also another story, a Maisa, one second, from one of the Chachamim, and we're going to see this beautiful idea about the eye and Kabbalah, which is totally amazing. So just to orient ourselves where we're holding, so we can understand how this is all coming together, we started off by saying that we can't experience the complete hashkacha, divine providence of Hashem on ourselves as long as we are mired with the unhealthy desire for money, powerful desire for money. And the only way that we can break through that desire for money is through tzedakah. That's the beginning, simple idea. And then we explained that there's this aspect of chesed, which comes from chachma, which is a cooling force of ruach, wind, a calming force that comes to calm the fire that's in the heart of the desire for money, of taivas mammon, desire for money. So it's the chesed, which is tzedakah, which comes into the fire in the heart of bina, really, which is where the desire for money rests. And only when we cool that desire off, are we able to see that the hashkacha of Hashem, the divine providence, Hashem's eyes are on us and guiding us in a more direct way, as we explained before. And we explained that the song of the Leviim played into this statement from the Zohar, and there had to be simcha involved in this also. And we explained that the keteres, the incense in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Mishkan, was another place where we saw this in the Torah, that the Beis HaMikdash, the incense, the keteres, was a place where the happiness of the heart, which is the cooling off of the fire of the desire for money in our heart, is what brings about this aspect, and how it was connected to the nose, right? And the curse that we would have to make our parnasa with zeas apecha, by the sweat of our nose, and in pain and difficulty. The tikkun for that is the Ketorish, which says Yasimu Ketara al apecha, be apecha. And then we know also, so the curse of having a difficult parnasa came to Adam HaRishon in the form connected to the nose. Bezeas apecha toichal lechem. And then the tikkun was in the Keteres, right? Yasimu Ketara ba'apecha. And the ultimate tikkun is Mashiach, who is Ruach HaPeinu, Mashiach Hashem. Ruach HaPeinu, Mashiach Hashem. Those things are all connected. And the Charan Af in the world, when there's Avodah Zarah, the Gemara says that as long as there's Avodah Zarah in the world, idol worship, there's also Charan Af, anger, which is connected to the nose. Once again, Charan Af. And only once we rid the world of Avodah Zarah will we rid the world of the anger of Hashem, where Hashem turns his face away from us, the opposite of Hashkacha. Let me just put on this do not disturb here. There we go. The opposite of Hashkacha, right? So once again, the nose and the Charan Af, and the thing that takes away, or that takes away the Hashkacha of Hashem to us and grows the anger of Hashem, is idol worship, which we said, the Gemara tells us, is taivas mammon, is considered like idol worship. Desire for money is considered like idol worship. All these things come together to make a beautiful connection. And then we said, when we have this balance of the ruach of chesed and the fire of bina, the fire of the taivas mammon, and those two things come together in the right way, and it cools it off, it gives this beautiful balance of das, which is called, the combination of chachma and bina is das. And this das is an aspect of emunah, and is an aspect of building the Beis HaMikdash, and is when everything is the way it's supposed to be. Just like when Mashiach comes, what's it going to be? It's going to be a beautiful revelation of das, of beautiful spiritual understanding and connection to seeing Hashem in the world. This is what das is. And when those two things come together, that's what we have. And then we said that connected to all this, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a tremendous revelation of the deeper aspects of Torah, of the Torah of Atika Stima, which is the highest levels of Kabbalah. And that's connected to Moshe Mashiach, to the Mashiach coming, which is always connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Gemara calls this aspect Moshe Mashiach. And it's through this that there'll be a revelation of this amazing Torah in the times of Mashiach. And how does this happen? It happens, this revelation of Torah happens in the times of Mashiach, and even now, when there's a zivug of Kutchabrichu and Shchinte, of these Kabbalistic aspects. And how does this zivug happen? When we raise up Mayim Nukvim, the feminine waters. And the way we raise up the feminine waters is through the tzaddik elevating our desires up to the high levels. That's what paves the path and brings up the Mayim Nukvim, the feminine waters, to make the zivug happen. When the tzaddik takes our desires and brings them up to those places. So the tzaddik is called Lokeach Nefashos, because the word nefesh really means desire, as we saw. Im yeshes nafshecha, if you desire, the Torah said, right? This is all a huge review, by the way. We're gonna get down to business. And then we said we have this interesting pasuk that when someone comes to the tzaddik and he brings up their souls in this way, the desire of their souls, and this creates the zivug. Then when he comes down, he has vayored im oiz mivtecha. He brings down this strength, power from up above. And we said that is an aspect of what Yechezkel said in his vision, v'achayos ratzav v'shoyev, that the angels were running and returning. That the tzaddik goes up and brings up our desires to the higher realms, and through those desires, he causes Mayim Nukvim to go up and to make the zivug happen. When that zivug happens, then Shefa comes down. That's when all the good stuff comes down. So that's what that's the Ratzah. The Ratzah is sending it up, and the Veshoiv is bringing back down with the revelation of Torah. So the tzaddik takes our desires up, and after the desires are up, when they come back down, it brings revelations of Torah, of the highest levels of Torah. And this is the way that it explains in the Tikkun Zohar, that Ratzah is Nuriel, Veshuv is Metat, and how those two things were connected in this way also. And that Metat Sar HaPnim was the Rosh Tevis of Moshe, which is Mashiach, and that's the way that works. So that's a very super duper quick review of really, really deep concepts that we went over last time. So I'm sure that sounded like a very jumbled explanation, but let's try to all see if we can keep on track as much as we can. We're going to return to one of the main themes now, with that stuff in our pocket. The main things we need to remember are the taivas mammon, is the desire for money is quenched by tzedakah, by the chesed, and that in order we want to get rid of the taivas mammon, so we can be connected to Hashem in a hashgacha way, that Hashem's eyes are on us, and Hashem is helping us is guiding us in our lives in a way that's much more apparent and much more hands-on, if we could say such a thing, right? And when we do this, we bring down a revelation of Torah, and that Torah is what helps this to happen. Those are the main points. The hashgacha of Hashem, the hands-on divine providence, connected to the revelation of Torah, and the tzaddik fixing our desires. Those things are the main points. Let's go. Letter Dalet, Ois Dalet, number 4, on page 258 in this sefer. Okay, we ready? Give me a thumbs up or a hands up or something. or a fist. Yeah. Okay, guys, here we go. Okay, just a second. Someone's joining. I'll say a quick l'chaim. Chaim Vered, both Vereds. Okay, here we go. Ois Daled. Vayedei hamshachas haTorah nimshach hashgacha. So all this thing we were talking about was that we are drawing down through this whole process of elevating our desires up to the upper worlds and making that zivug happen between Kuchabricha and Shchinte and bringing down the revealed Torah, right? Through that process of drawing down the revealed Torah, we also draw down Hashem's hashgacha onto us. Through drawing down, listen to this, through drawing down the revealed Torah, we draw the hashgacha of Hashem onto us. We draw Hashem's direct, hands-on providence onto our lives. Why? Ki ha-Torah hi tanta. The Torah is called tanta. Shehem tlas gavnin de'ina ubasayin. Let's explain this. We've said this a few times, but let's say it again. We know that the name of Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, is 4 parts, 4 letters. And we know that name of Hashem, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, is represented in various different Kabbalistic existences. And the main revelation is always connected to these 4 letters, right? And so there's a certain very high level, which the Arizal talks about in the section called Shar HaTanta in the Kisvei Arizal, which explains that these 4 letters of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, 4 revelations and emanations of godliness, are connected to the letters with which the Torah is written. And the letters with which the Torah is written are made up of 4 parts, which are tamim, which means the musical notes, nekudos, which means the vowels, tagin, which means the crowns on the letters, and oisios, which means the letters themselves. Tamim, nekudim, tagis, and oisios. And they relate to the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, to the 4 letters of the name of Hashem. So the revelation of godliness into the world is also contained within the letters with which the Torah is written. And interestingly, in order to really have that revelation, it's not just enough to have the actual Sefer Torah that we have. Because if you open up the Sefer Torah, what will you see? You'll see only the last 2. You'll only see Oisios and Tagin, the letters and the crowns. Not written in the Torah is the Nekudos, the vowels, and the Tamim, the musical notes. So you cannot have the full revelation of the Torah unless you have the Sefer Torah and a holy Yiddish neshama who's reading it and plugging in the Nekudos and the Tamim, the vowels and the musical notes. Only then do you have the full picture of a true revelation of the Torah, right? And at a certain level, the Tamim and the Nekudos, the vowels and the musical notes, it makes total sense to anybody who has any kind of hargasha whatsoever, any kind of feeling towards music. You know that music is very elevated, right? And it stirs someone's soul to a very big extent. It's the highest level of the revelation, right? And so you know that the reason why it's not written in the actual Torah is because it's too holy. It doesn't even come down into physicality. It can't be written down. It has to be that it's just saying out. It can't be written down in the Sefer Torah. Beautiful. So these 4 letters, Yud Kei Vav Kei, correspond to the Tamim, Nekudos, Oisios, and Tagin and Oisios, the 4 aspects of the letters of the Sefer Torah. But they also connect to, the Zohar speaks about this in such a beautiful way. Rebbe Nachman talks about this a lot. They also correspond to the eye. How do they correspond to the eye? The eye, in Kabbalistic talk, is made up of what he says here, Shahim tlas gvanin de'ena ubas ayin. The 3 colors of the eye and the pupil. So the 3 colors of the eye, I'm given to understand, are perhaps the white, the lines surrounding the iris, I believe it's called, if I remember, from the old days of science class, I guess. I don't know what I learned. Who knows when we learned that? And then the color part, right? It's called the iris, right? Someone give me a thumbs up. That's the iris, right? Yeah. And then the pupil, which is the bas ayin, is called the pupil is called the bas ayin. So those three aspects correspond to the four letters of the name of Hashem, correspond to divine revelation of godliness in the world, and they correspond to those four aspects of the written Torah, which correspond to a revelation of godliness in the world. Right? So the name of Hashem is emanation of elokus, of spiritual energy, godliness in the world. The Torah is emanation of holiness and godliness into the world. And it's all represented within the eye as well. So let's see where else we see this. V'zeh mascheles. So now Rebbe Nachman is going to quote the Likutei Zohar, which he quotes in probably every single Torah. The Likutei Zohar. V'zeh mascheles ha-Torah beBereshis. This is that shemascheles ha-Torah beBereshis. This is what the way that the Torah began and how the Torah began with the word Bereshis. So have I told you? Have we learned before what the Sefer Likutei Zohar is? Maybe? The Likutei Zohar is this very, very, very holy Kabbalistic text, which Rebbe Nachman held is the holiest of all Kabbalistic texts. And the whole entire Sefer is just going through all these different interpretations of the word Bereshis. That's it. The whole entire thing. Different interpretations of the word Bereshis. So, a couple that come to mind. One is Bara Tayesh. I think we had this in the last Torah, that Hashem created a sheep, a ram, and that Tayesh was the ram that was there by the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. Right? So the commentaries say that when Hashem commanded Avram to go and slaughter his son, and in the last minute told him to stop, and there was a ram, a sheep, whatever, ram, with it stuck into the bush over there. The Midrash tells us that ram was there from Misheshis Yemei Bereshis. That ram was there from the time of creation, waiting, prepared for this moment. And the Tikkun Zohar tells us that this is one of the explanations of just the word Bereshis is Bara Tayesh. You take the letters of the word Bereshis, and it spells Bara Tayesh, that he created this sheep, ram, whatever it is. I'm really bad with these things. If it's ram, sheep, lamb, I don't know. I think they're all the same thing. I don't know. Close, maybe. I don't know. Right? So, Bara Tayesh, that's one. So, the one that we're going to see now here, listen to this. The word Bereshis means Taman Rashe, but Taman Bas. There is their Rashe, meaning the heads of, and Taman Bas, and also the word Bas, which is like Bas Ayin, which means the pupil. Rashe, Eile, Rashe, Beis Avoisam. These are, like the Torah says, these are the heads, Rashe, the heads of the house of your father's houses. Sheha Avois, Heim Talas Gavim Deina. Because the Avois are considered and are connected to, in the Zohar, these three aspects of the eye. The Talas Gavonin of the eye. Taman Bas, and what's the Bas? Is the Bas Ayin, is the pupil. So the forefathers of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are connected to the three top levels, which correspond to the three colors of the eye, and the Bas means the Bas Ayin, means the pupil. Nimtza, Kishachacham Mevi Torah Kanal, comes out that when a Chacham brings down this Torah, do you remember what we said? The tzaddik takes up our desires and uses our desires to make holy things happen in the upper worlds, zivugim. And when the zivug happens, it gives birth to this revealed Torah that then comes down, high-level Kabbalistic Torah that we draw down. So when the Chacham brings this Torah, Nimtza Shamevi Koyach HaRa'us Shal hashgachas Hashem yisbarach aleinu. It comes out that he's drawing down the power of vision of the hashgacha of Hashem onto us. V'chol echad kefi keruvay ala Torah. And every person, according to the level that they're close to the Torah, kein hashgachas Hashem yisbarach alav. So too, the divine providence of Hashem is upon that person. Meaning what? We just said that the levels of the Torah, Tamim, Nekudim, Tagin, and Oisiyos, these revelations of Torah correspond to the eye. Why do they correspond to the eye? How are those two things connected? It's because when we draw down the Torah, which is these 4 parts, we draw down a certain aspect of divine vision onto us. Meaning, when we get involved with Torah and we draw down this beautiful deep Torah, it causes Hashem's gaze to fall upon us. Because when we're bringing down those 4 levels of Torah, we're bringing down the vision together with it onto us. Because the Torah has those 4 levels, and the eye has those 4 levels, and the Tikkunei Zohar and the Zohar connect them together. So it's not just Geschmack. We're learning such beautiful Torah, such amazing ideas, right? It's Gevaldik, it's great. But that's not the only thing that's happening. At the same time, whenever we learn Torah, we're bringing Hashem's gaze upon us. And Hashem's saying, oh, I see what's going on over here. I'm going to watch these people. I'm going to have my eye on them, right? I mean, it probably doesn't say it like that, but that's what happens. And the more that we are close to the Torah, and the more we involve ourselves in the Torah, the more we bring down the vision, the gaze of Hashem onto us. Because the main power of vision comes about because there's like a striking on the thing that is being seen. And then the power of vision bounces back and goes into the eye of the person looking. And then that thing that you're looking at, that is being looked at, is I don't know how to say this, painted, is pictured then in the eye of the person looking. And then the eyes see that thing that they're looking at. Because the power of vision brings that thing into the eyes. So I'm pretty sure that according to scientific understanding of the eyes, that this is not how it works. I think we have to open our spiritual eye. We're talking about a type of spiritual vision. And if I can speak about this for a few seconds, just from my own perspective, I think maybe some of you will identify with this. So, Rebbe Nachman is saying this thing, that vision, the way when we look at something, science would tell us what? I think, once again, I'm not a scientist, but if I remember back to high school and university, that the light from the sun comes down and reflects off different items, and different items, depending on their makeup, reflect different colors. And so those different colors that are reflected off different items come into our eyes, and our eyes have a lens, which is the bas ayin, the pupil, and that then goes and focuses it to the back wall of our eye, which has all these vision receptors on it. And those vision receptors then cause us to see. So there certainly is a bouncing off and coming to the eyes, and we see something. But Rebbe Nachman is saying something more than that. He's saying that when we look at something, we send out something. When we look at something, we are projecting something by our gaze at that item. And the way that I think we can understand this in a couple of ways is, first of all, I'm sure we've all heard of the concept of ayin ra. Right? Ayin ra. Any Sfardim over here? There? Right? Ayin ra. Ayin ra is a powerful negative force, and it's not something that's just superstition. Every stream of Judaism recognizes this concept of ayin ra, and it even makes its way into Jewish law. There are certain things that we don't do because of ayin ra. It's a real thing. when someone gazes at another person with a certain type of vision, they're projecting something out, right? You project something the way you look at someone else, and we see this also in Rebbe Nachman's Torah, a Zamra, which I would love for us to take a break and learn at some point. But Rebbe Nachman's Torah, a Zamra, he says this beautiful idea that the way that you look at another person has a spiritual effect on them. And when you look at a person and you judge them favorably, the way that you look at them has projects spiritual positivity to that person, and it can help that person to do tshuva. Just by you looking at them and judging them favorably, right? You can have a positive effect on that person. So in a spiritual sense, we see this concept that that when we gaze at somebody, when we look at somebody, not only are we just receiving like the physical vision, we're just receiving reflections coming to our eyes, but we're putting something out at the same time, right? And this is what Rebbe Nachman is saying over here, that Hashem's vision going out, whatever that means. This is all, of course, not talking physically, and we're not, there's no big actual eye in the sky. It's a metaphorical eye in the sky, sort of. And when Hashem extends His vision to us, that vision then comes back up to Hashem and goes into His eye. Okay, that's what we're saying now. And we're saying that when we draw down the Torah, which is connected to the 4 levels of Torah, and the 4 levels of the name of Hashem are connected to the 4 parts of the eye. So when we're connected to Torah on a close level, we draw down the gaze of Hashem onto us, and then it goes back into His eye, whatever that means. His non-physical, spiritual, infinite eye. But when the thing that is being viewed is very distant, before the power of vision, the gaze, reaches that thing that is far away, it gets spread out within the air. There's a lot of airspace between there, and the vision is blurred. You can't see the thing properly. And there's no bouncing off of the vision of the thing that's so distant away. And because of this, the vision doesn't get back into the eye of the looker, gazer. And then the eyes don't see. Because the main vision happens because of this reflection, meaning the vision bouncing back. And this is what the pasuk says in Tehillim: Shuvna habeit mishamayim ura'eh. Shuvna habeit min hashamayim ura'eh. Return, look from Shemayim, look from the heavens and see. What does that pasuk mean? Sheyashuv habata shemabit mishamayim aleinu. Meaning, what's returning for this vision is that the vision that Hashem has going on to us should return, should bounce back and return to Hashem. Shuvna habeit min hashamayim ura'eh. See from heaven, gaze from heaven and see. Yashuv al yedei hakah, through the bouncing off. Yashuv harus le'inav, the vision should go into his eyes. Va'az ura'eh, then he'll see. Ki hari'iyah al yedei hashavas hahabata, because re'iyah happens from the gaze returning into the eye. V'zeh bechinas v'achayos rotzev v'shoiv. And this is this aspect of what we said before, that the chayos rotzev v'shoiv, that the spiritual entities run and return. V'achayos hainu haTorah. Chayos refers to Torah. How do we see? Shehi chaim. Torah is Torah's chaim. We don't have to give explanations why Torah is called chaim, right? Torah's chaim. Ratzoi b'chinas habata me'el asata. So ratzoi so the chayos, the Torah, the spiritual energy, that's the Torah. Ratzoi means the vision going from above to below, v'shoiv, and returning Bechinas hakos haru'us b'davar nira, is the vision going back from down below up into the eye in the sky. V'nechzar le'enayim v'nitztayer be'enayim, and then it goes back into the eyes and is nitztayer, is formed, is pictured in the eye. Ki ha'enayim hem kamara latusha, because the eyes are like a polished mirror. Shenizra'a behem kol davar ha'omed kenegdai, that you can see in the eyes anything that is standing opposite them. Meaning, we're taking the eye, and we're understanding from the eye that there's hints to the way that the spiritual vision works. Right? In other words, we know that every part of the body corresponds to something in the spiritual realm. And we know it's not exactly the same, right? It's the way that we can understand the vision above, right? From my own flesh, I can grasp and understand Hashem to a certain extent. So just like when you stand and look someone close in the eye, I'd like to put my eye right up to the camera, but all you'd see is the computer camera. It wouldn't be so geschmack. But when you're standing right in front of somebody, right, what do you see in their eye? You could see your own reflection, or you can see whatever's happening behind them. So something about, that's teaching us something also. It's teaching us that what the thing that's being looked at comes into the eye in a certain way, right? It becomes part of the looker. I'm sure there's a better word, but it becomes part of the looker, right? And through this, that we're close to the Torah. It comes out that then we are close to the vision of Hashem. And through this, the power of vision goes back into his eyes. And then we are written and pictured and drawn in his eyes up there. Right? Why? I know I've said it 5 times already, but just remember, the Torah is Tanta, is these 4 levels. Just like the eye is those 4 parts. And the Kabbalah teaches us that those things are connected for this very reason. That when we're close to the Torah, we're drawing the vision of Hashem onto ourselves. But the non-Jews, because they're far and distant away from the Torah, they are far and distant from the hashgacha of Hashem. And his hashgacha doesn't reach them in this aspect of reaching and then bouncing off and returning. Nimsa hashgachasai shel ha'akum al ha'akum bechatzi ha'reus. Comes out that the divine providence that is on this idol worshipper is only with half vision. V'chinas ratzai. It's only ratzai. It's only going out. V'aleinu hashgachasai b'shleimus. And us who are learning Torah, his hashgacha is on us b'shleimus in a complete way. So in the very beginning, some matrix here. Okay, Alyssa said there's some matrix going on here. There's always matrix going on in Torah discussions.
I was saying that there's 5 levels of the Torah learning, not just 4, which are the 5 levels of the neshama. So Chassidus is not a level in and of itself. Chassidus is that 5th level, the Yechida. So forget K, love K, Yechida, Nefesh Baruch Neshama Chai Yechida, and then start by Mishpah Sod, Chassidus.
Oh, very good. So there's a hidden level that's pretty gewaldic, and the Yud Kei Vav Kei, of course, is also 5, right?
Because you have the Yud, the crown of the Yud.
The Kutzar Shel Yud. It's also the Yud Kei Vav Kei represents the 5 partsufim, right? So of Keser, Chochma Bina, Zer Anpin, and Nukve in Kabbalah. So Yonah's saying something very, very geschmack. Although I wonder why Rebbe Nachman didn't include it. He's teaching it already. Maybe he wanted us to figure that out. I don't know. Very good. So that's what we're holding now. This is what we all want. Remember, what's important about this for us? How do we want to experience this? Right? Why do we want the hashgacha of Hashem on us? And what does that mean? The hashgacha of Hashem is on everything. Nothing happens in the world without Hashem's design and plan, right? What does it mean that we're drawing down the hashgacha of Hashem onto ourselves in a different way, right? So I want to say there's a couple ways we can go about this tonight. So we're here right now, all of us. How many are there of us? There's about 20 of us here right now. We're all here learning some pretty seriously amazing Torah right now from Rebbe Nachman, right? And we're reflecting on this, and it's helping us to reach a higher level of existence. And we're drawing down, literally, these secrets of Torah. We're drawing down deep levels of Torah, right? So here we are. You know what else we could have been doing tonight? We could have been flipping through whatever the news agencies are, looking at this mishugas that's going on south of the border, and trying to somehow, I don't know, fill our minds with everything that's happening there. Or we could have been, watching television shows or Netflix or whatever where people watch nowadays. Or we could have been doing all these things that are not only are they just filling our brains with garbage and not allowing space, open space, empty space for Hashem to send down what He wants to send down to us, right? Like we always like to say, if my vessels are totally full, then I can't receive what Hashem wants to give me. If I'm willing to open my vessels and get rid of the garbage, I have space for what Hashem wants to give to me. It's not only that, but as we do this, we're drawing down a closer relationship to Hashem. And we're drawing down divine providence onto ourselves. And when we do this, we start to see divine providence in our lives. We start to see the hand of Hashem in our daily lives, in the things that happen to us, and in these remarkable things. We told a lot of stories already about the divine providence that we've seen. We told the story last week. I think I told the story, right? About the tzedakah and the lady who came up at the same time, right? And we told these stories about the mezuzahs, and there are things that happened literally right here in my house. Totally amazing, unbelievable, undeniable divine providence, right? So if we start to get close to the Torah and we start to do this, we can see Hashem in our lives. Who do we want to be? Do we want to be sitting here learning amazing things and connecting to each other and connecting to Torah and connecting to Hashem and seeing His hand in our lives because of what we do? Or do we just want to be, plugging ourselves in to the feed of I don't even want to say, and just sticking that into our brain, turning off and not looking for Hashem, right? I know the way that I want to be, but this is the way to have a beautiful life, to live with emunah, to see Hashem in the world, to always be trying to connect, always be trying to find a deeper existence. This is why it's important for us, I believe, on an individual level. Okay, so that's very geschmack stuff. The next part of this Torah is going to be a little bit complicated, a little bit hard to understand, with a few special points to take out from there. I'm just going to give a little bit of an introduction here. So the next part of the Torah is quoting the psukim from the vision of Yechezkel HaNavi, which is called the Maisa HaMerkava, the chariot vision. Right? I don't know what that is in English, Maisa HaMerkava. And in this chariot vision, Rebbe Nachman is explaining to us that there's an upper chariot and a lower chariot. And these two chariots, merkavas, are alluding to the ascension, the tzaddik bringing up our ritzonos, our desires, and using them as mayim nukvim to make the zivugim happen, and then the lower chariot bringing down the Torah and the hashgacha of Hashem onto us. Right? So we're going to see two aspects, two explanations of the chariot and how they relate to these things and the vision that he saw there. And the vision, I'm just going to read now in English here, the the whole passage, the way that Reb Chaim brings it down here. There's a few missing portions, but just what we need to see. Okay, now it came to pass that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. Also out of the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. That's Chayos, by the way. They had the face of an Adam, a man, the face of an Aryeh, a lion, the face of a shor, ox, and the face of a nesher, eagle. And the living creatures run and return. That's the pasuk that we quoted before. V'chayos ratza v'shoiv. And when the living creatures move, the efanim, wheels, go. For the spirit of the living creatures is in the wheels. And above the firmament that is over their heads is the likeness of a kisei, a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne is a likeness, in appearance like an Adam, up above it. That's the passage. Okay? So let's dive into this and see how he's going to tie this to the things that we said so far. It's not going to be easy. Please just everybody do our best to follow along. V'zeh b'chinas tikunei de merchavta ilah u'merchavta tata. This is an aspect of the rectification of the upper chariot and the lower chariot. Shal yedei hachacham shelekeach hanafashos va'ola imahem. That it's through the fact that the chacham, the tzaddik, takes those nefashos, which we said are the desires, and goes up with them, v'yored oz mivtecha, and he brings down the mighty which it trusts, which we said is the Torah of Atikas Tima, the very high level Kabbalistic Torah. Nistaknu shnei hamerkavos. That's how these 2 chariots are rectified and fixed up. Okay, so once again, these 2 chariots. There's 2 chariots. One referring to the ascending of the tzaddik up with our desires, and the second one of the coming back down, bringing the Torah, the Atikas Tima, the Torah of Lasid Lava, the Torah of Mashiach. And as Rabbi Yonah would say over here, the deep Torah of Chassidus. Ki yesh arba chayos b'chinas nefesh v'chisei v'yoshev ala kisei. So there's 4 chayos, which are in the aspect of 4 creatures, a throne, and one who sits on the throne. 4 creatures, a throne, and the one who sits on the throne. Okay. Aryeh, sheb'chinas nefesh. The Aryeh is in the aspect of nefesh, which is soul or desire. Ze b'chinas arisi mori im besami. This is the aspect of, I gathered my myrrh with my spice. Mori, ze b'chinas maras nefesh. So once again, Aryeh means I gathered my myrrh, the spice myrrh. I gathered the myrrh. The word for myrrh is mori, mor, which is a bechina of maras nefesh, which is connected to mar, bitterness, which means maras nefesh. It means a bitter soul or a bitter desire. Bechinas v'nafsha marala, which is an aspect of the pasuk that says, and her soul was bitter within her. V'zeh bechinas pagam hanefesh. This is an aspect of a blemish in the person's soul or the person's desire. Pagam haratzain, a blemish in the desire of that person, the will of that person. What is that referring to? Everybody? Kasheroitze davar taiva zeh haratzain. Kasheroitze davar taiva. When a person wants this thing that's an aspect of taiva, of desire, of negative desire, that's the ratzain. Hu pagam umara lenefesh. That gives a person a blemish and a bitter soul. This we're referring to what we said in the beginning of the taivas mammon, of the unhealthy desire for money. I don't think I have to explain this to anybody. If you have a very strong desire for something that is not proper, and there's no question that it gives you a bitter soul. It gives you a bitter existence. If someone is just pining and pining and pining after money, like we know the Gemara tells us, if a person has 100, they're going to want $200. A person who has a desire for money will never be satiated. Right? There's people out there who are crying because they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the fluctuation of the stock market, right? I mean, they have millions of dollars, and they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And they're going crazy because of what's happening right now, and they're afraid. What's going to be with every time something happens? There's the coronavirus vaccine is announced, and the markets rally a little bit. Then the election is not so sure. Is there going to be rioting? The markets go down a little bit, right? And people who are plugged into that, some people, I'm not necessarily generalizing, right, are losing they're losing their minds about this. What's going to be with this money? Yeah, they have, $1 million house and a nice car and everything, right? But they're worried about winning and losing $10,000, $100,000. Meanwhile, there's someone down the street in a rented house who if someone dropped them $10,000 on their lap, it would literally fix all of their problems. Right? So there's a healthy desire for money, and there's when it's driving you crazy. And when it's driving you crazy, you have a bitter existence and a bitter soul. Right? Does anybody want to argue with me on that? I like being argued with, but I don't think anyone can argue on this one. Okay. No? Okay. So and so this is what the first vision of the first chaya, the first one of these living spiritual existences, the Aryeh is referring to, is the bitter nefesh. So and the Aryeh is the gatherer of those bitter desires. And when he takes them up, this is the tzaddik taking them up to the upper realms, taking the desires up to make the tikkun. So now, when a person comes to this chacham hador, the tzaddik, im nafshoy ritzoynai, with his nefesh and his ratzoin, his desires, the chacham hador loikeach kol haritzoynais, and the chacham takes all of his ritzoynais, all of his desires, v'loikedeisam echad lechad, and he gathers them all together. All the different desires of the different people, brings them together. Kadei lahalo seisam kanal, to raise them up. Ha malaked gam kol haratzonos v'nafasha shenaflu. He's lifting up all of those desires and souls that have fallen. V'zehu bechinas aryeh lashon leket, and this is what it means, the word aryeh, which is a lashon of leket, of gathering together. Shemalaked maras hanefesh, that he gathers together all of the bitterness of the souls of those who have these desires. Hainu pagam hanefesh, which is a blemish in the soul. Im besami, together with the pasuk said, with my spices. Im haratzon atoiv, shamal reach toiv, which brings up, together with the good desires, which brings up a good smell. Fallen desires are these desires. Where should our ratzon be placed? Where should our desire be placed? Right? People have, let's look at it in a couple of ways. A desire for money. We spoke about this a little bit in the beginning. Just a little bit, very quick here. A desire for money, is this always unhealthy? Right? A person can have a very healthy desire for money. For what purpose? Just that I should serve Hashem. I should have money that I can serve Hashem with that money, right? With no games, right? That means a person can say, yeah, I want to have money so I can serve Hashem. So I need, this amount of money, and I need to be able to buy this and this and this and that. And mixed in with my desire to serve Hashem is really my own ego, because I really also want to make that money, because it's going to make me look amazing, and I'm going to be on the top, and people are going to respect me, because, right, mixed together with it. Those are the games, right? That I'm going to want more money than I actually need to serve Hashem, and that I really mixed in with my good desires is also my ego, right? With physical desires, right? A husband and wife should have physical desires for each other, right? And that's where it should be aimed. That's where love should be directed towards. But if people, which unfortunately happens a lot these days, are aiming their physical desires all over the rest of the world and into other things that they see on the internet and all these places, it's being diverted the wrong way. That's a fallen desire. It's no good. So when someone makes an effort to go to connect to the Torah and to connect to tzaddikim, really make a connection to a tzaddik, right? What Rebbe Nachman is telling us over here is that the tzaddik is able to take those fallen desires, those blemished desires, and bring them up together with the good desires. And with that, make a tikkun. And bring down this revealed Torah, which is going to strengthen us in such a beautiful way. So, this is one of the reasons why one of the biggest pieces of advice that is given in order to overcome these, what's called taivas niyuf, these negative sexual desires, or taivas mammon, these negative money desires, is to connect to tzaddikim. And Rebbe Nachman will say that, Rebbe Nosson will say that you cannot overcome this without connecting to tzaddikim. So when we learn the Torah of Rebbe Nachman, and we're doing it with the express intent to receive his advice, to follow his advice, that's what it means to connect to Rebbe Nachman. He tells us himself, there's to daven, to go to the kivrei tzaddikim, to connect ourselves spiritually to the tzaddikim, to follow the advice of the tzaddikim, to do what we can to spread the vision of the tzaddikim, right? We have a few people who don't like when I say their names here, but that are very active in spreading the books of the tzaddikim, right? We all know that, I won't say her name, she's going to get really mad at me. Someone here has a whole basement full of books, and she is like the central point of distribution of books to all of Canada. There's another person here who calls me probably once a week, saying, I need another book. This week she's coming to get a book tomorrow to send to Nova Scotia. Right? Why? To people. And she's sending them all the time. There's a few people here who are always calling for books. Why? Because they believe in the message and they're connecting to the tzaddikim by doing this. That's one of the ways. Right? So when we do this and we're connecting to the tzaddikim, Alyssa says, bravo to our book friends. Right? Yay. Bravo to our book friends. When we're spreading the Torah of the tzaddikim, we're connecting to them. So this aspect of connecting to the tzaddikim and connecting, in this shiur and in my path, the connection and the tzaddik is Rebbe Nachman. And when we do it, we're able to participate in this tikkun. And we're able to have our desires channeled in the right way. And we're able to get spiritual strength to endure these desires that we have and channel them in the right way. Right? So we should keep on. Okay, that's the first section of this very difficult section, and it's an hour right now, so I think maybe it's a good place to stop because we're not going to finish to the next letter. That'll take us a long time. So let's try and see if we can remember for the next class as much as possible these levels that we've spoken about, so that we can start and pick up right where we left off. Are there any questions or comments about anything?